Well, hello everyone out there in the football world. I am Sanders, your host of the Head Couch Analyst Show, and as usual, I'm joined by my co-host, Head Couch Ondol over here, Pardue. How are we doing, man? It was a good weekend of football, I thought, right?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I felt like overall, the matches we expected to be, pretty poor, that being Seattle and the Rams, didn't end up being too bad. The one really, really bad game, obviously, of the weekend was Bears and Saints, but anybody who didn't expect that game to be kind of a stinker, I don't know what you were looking for there. Nickelodeon made it kind of interesting. The broadcasting team was, not gonna lie, they were pretty awful, but I think adding the visuals and everything, it wasn't too bad. And I think if they do that again in the future, I feel like if they just improve the broadcasting team, it'll be better.
I think Nate Burleson was the only good part of it.
Yeah.
But he also, always has that energy for, Good Morning Football and things like that. So he's always had, that style and experience. He doesn't need to change himself for broadcasting, especially for a kid's broadcast. He could just be a man-child like he is on Good Morning Football, right? And I'm not saying he's strictly a man-child because he's a pretty good analyst on Good Morning Football. But what I mean is he has that really fun energy and doesn't take things too seriously, and that's perfect for a Nickelodeon broadcast. I turned it off after, midway through second quarter because I was pretty entertained by it, but by midway through second quarter, I was like, all right, I need Tony Romo. I was like, I can't tolerate this anymore. So I thought my favorite part was when when he was like, Taysom Hill is the kid that you pick for every sport on the playground.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, it's a pretty good way of saying it. So, yep.
The funniest thing to me was at the end of the game when, the viewers at home decided to troll the broadcast and vote Mitchell Trubisky as the MVP.
Yeah, the Nickelodeon
and they were like,
valuable player.
Yeah. And then they were trying to justify it. We're like, oh, Mitchell Trubisky, although he's going home with a loss today, and he played really, really hard and really, really well, and even though he lost, he's going to get to go home with this great trophy, this great award. I'm like, wow, they're really trying hard here. He played like dog shit. I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was great.
Well, yeah. I mean, what are you going to do? If you're given that, right, you have to try and sell it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I was disappointed in was, I think they showed the voting in third quarter and Mr. Trubisky was leading, and I was like, why?
Mm-hmm.
What is going on? I didn't know if that was actually kids or just full-grown ass adults like you and I.
No, it was adults just trolling the broadcast. It had to be.
Oh, it's so mean, though. If you're going to choose...
I think it's hilarious.
If you're going to choose a Bears player... I don't know. I don't even know who you would choose. It wouldn't be Allen Robinson. He didn't have a day. The kicker.
You wouldn't choose anyone.
No, the kicker. He scored 9 points.
I guess. Well, no, because he scored only 3 points because they scored as time expired the touchdown.
See, I didn't watch the fourth quarter, so I wouldn't know that. Oh, there you go.
On the very final play of the game, they scored a touchdown.
No, I immediately turned it off and started helping with dinner because I was like, I can't watch this. I already knew the end result, right? As soon as it was 21-3, I was like, okay, it's over. Who cares? Moving on. I honestly, I won't have much to say about that game in the first place, but let's talk about what happened this weekend, and we're gonna do it in a fun way. We're actually gonna rank who we think the top 8 teams are, and by top 8 teams, we're talking about teams that we think have the best chance to win the Super Bowl, right? So, spoiler alert, our teams that we picked to make the Super Bowl are top two, so Green Bay and Buffalo. But we'll tell you who we think is number 1 as of right now. And we'll get there when we get there. But we have number 8, and I'm kind of foiling this up here. At number 8, we have the LA Rams, and I would like to say that our top 8 is an agreement. It's not what I think. It's not what Pardue thinks. We discussed this beforehand. We had a couple disagreements, but we came down with a list that we 95% agreed with, and we're like, hey, this is what we're going to go with for the show. So at number 8, we have the LA Rams. The reason why we have them as the worst team left, and that's not a bad thing because it's still a top 8 team, is because their defense is phenomenal. We love their defense. We love what they got going on. Jalen Ramsey is arguably the best corner left in playoffs and probably in the NFL this year. And Aaron Donald is just the best player in football, and he's proved that numerous times. And we also saw the depth that the Rams' defensive line has when Aaron Donald was out during the Seahawks game. So we know that this defense can ball. Unfortunately, the offense is the complete opposite. Kupp is not coming out like he should be. We don't know who's starting at quarterback this weekend. And Cam Akers had a pop-off game, but a piece of us wonders, was that the Seahawks defense that let him pop off, or was he popping off because he was finally having a breakout and Sean McVay finally decided Cam Akers is the guy, right? So, and I wasn't like entirely impressed with what they did against Seattle, right? Like Seattle had an awful game. Russell Wilson was terrible. Just the whole offense wasn't very good, right? Like the only real pop-off play I can remember was off the back foot of a broken play, Wilson threw across his body, and it was like a gorgeous pass to Metcalf, and it was reminiscent of what was happening in the first 5 weeks. But that never happened again, right? And Chris Carson never went off. Like, the Seahawks just looked terrible, and I think the Rams defense took advantage of a bad-looking offense, and then the Rams offense just pounded the ball with Akers because they had a quarterback who frankly can't throw. And I don't mean Jared Goff is bad. I mean he physically can't throw because he's 9 days? Was it 9 days at the time off surgery or 10, something like that?
Yeah, it was. They said he was 100%, but he
didn't.
But
look
then
100%.
they also right, and then they also say, oh, but his hand lacks functionality. That's not 100%. And going forward, no matter who suits up for the Rams this weekend, they really don't stand a chance against the Packers in Lambeau. And especially if it's Goff, imagine how cold his hands are going to be still recovering from surgery. It's only going to be even more difficult to throw the ball. And yeah, kind of just like everything off you're saying, like their defense is incredible. It's the best defense in the league this year. And in terms of the other teams, it's really not that close. And yeah, their offense just isn't going to do enough, and they'll be done after this week. I picked the Seahawks to win last week, and I mean they just fell flat. And the Seahawks down the stretch just really weren't the same team. Russell Wilson wasn't the same quarterback. DK wasn't a top 5 or even a top 10 receiver anymore, and they kind of just lost it down the stretch, and the Rams are able to take advantage, and good for them for getting their playoff victory, but their season more likely than not ends here on Sunday.
And the result of the Seahawks looking so terribly was Schottenheimer getting fired as offensive coordinator, so they'll be looking for a new offensive coordinator this offseason. As for the Rams themselves, they play the Packers this weekend. We'll talk about what we think about that game later on going forward. But yeah, you're right. I don't think their chances look all that great moving forward. At number 7, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, this is weird because I feel like you could place the Bucs anywhere from 8 to 1. Like, if someone came to me and said, hey, they're number 1 or they're number 2, they're number 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7 or 8, I could buy all your reasonings because of the Jekyll and Hyde thing that we've talked about all season. When they're Dr. Jekyll, they're unstoppable and unbeatable. And then when they're Hyde, they look very beatable. And they looked like Hyde against Washington. Now, part of this is because that Washington defense is nothing to mess around with. And I think if Washington can pull some magic at quarterback this offseason, I don't know how. But if they somehow did, I think they're a quarterback away from being like a 9-win team, if not better. They obviously need some more offensive weapons. I like Gibson. I like McLaurin. That's a good way to start for your role players. Have a number 1 back. Have a number 1 wide receiver, right? And then you have a quarterback who takes advantage of that, and then you can get your role players. And you already have a top defense. Like, it sounds fantastic on paper. And they gave the Bucs some fits, but I don't think the Bucs took advantage of a seemingly bad offense. And I understand Heineke had a good game. I would expect more, though, from a defense that was looking good in the regular season and you're playing playoff football.
Yeah, in terms of the Washington football team, like they have the groundwork for a team that could be really, really good starting next year. From So when you look at them offensively, like you mentioned it, they got McLaurin, and then they got I'm sorry, is his first name Antonio Gibson, their running back? Yeah. And then Logan Thomas, their tight end, is another player I also really, really like, who was a former Cardinal quarterback who's like a 6th-round draft pick, then reverted to tight end, or converted to tight end. But so those are the pieces I really like on their offense. They also have a pretty stout offensive line. So they got the makings of an offense that can be pretty good. Now, you need to build on the weapons you do have, and then the quarterback position is a question. Now, I don't think you can crown a guy after one game, that being Taylor Heinicke. But he played very, very well against the Buccaneers.
Lots of props to him.
Right. And on paper, like, this Bucs defense, it's a pretty good defense. And honestly, if you would have told me that Taylor Heinicke and company put up 23 points, I could have told you they probably had a 60-40 chance of beating the Buccaneers. And, I mean, that's saying a lot because this high-powered Bucs offense and everything, but if they're putting up that many points, I figured the defense would perform better. So I wouldn't put the loss for Washington on Taylor Heinicke and the offense, because they did their fair share, at least to the standard of their team. And I just don't think the defense held up quite their end of the bargain. And Chase Young was practically non-existent in the ball game. But kind of like you said, they're a quarterback away from being a 9-win team. And I think they're a quarterback away from being a really dangerous team and, you know, winning that NFC East be the first team to win the NFC East back-to-back times for the first time in I don't know how long. I think it was like 15 years the last time I saw.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like, the biggest takeaway I had from this game was I felt like too often the Washington offense was hot or cold. Like, they would put up some long, like, they would put up drives that would be like 9 plays, and then they didn't score and they punted it, right? Mm-hmm. And then here comes the defense, and then the defense would take care of business. And then, like, the Washington offense would go 3 and out, and then the defense comes right back out. I felt like the defense held up their part for probably 2.5 quarters, and then Tampa Bay just kind of rolled over them because it's an offense that, like you said, is high-powered, has a lot of ability behind Antonio Brown, Chris Evans, Godwin, and all them, and Gronkowski. All guys who have popped off at some point this season. They've all had their individual great games. And if your offense isn't developing enough drives or sustained drives, at least scoring a field goal or something like that, I feel like at some point an offense tailored by Tom Brady is going to beat whatever defense is in front of them. It doesn't really matter who it is. Like, we saw that in Super Bowl 46. Was it 46? 48. Super Bowl 48 was Denver, Seattle, I think. Maybe it was Super Bowl 49. Whatever the Super Bowl was that Tom Brady led the comeback in fourth quarter against the Legion of Boom. And then at the very end, it was the Malcolm Butler interception. Right? Like, that was an unstoppable defense, and it was holding Tom Brady down for a while, and then in the fourth quarter, he carved him up. It's going to happen eventually, right? So I think there was just a lack of completeness from Washington that the Bucs were able to take advantage of. Whether you want to blame, the inefficiency of the offense, or you want to blame the defense for giving out in the second half, whatever it may be, it's an incomplete team. But I think it's headed in the right direction, though, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, at least I think Washington's heading in the right direction. Ron Rivera has certainly helped with that. As for the Bucs themselves, the reason we have them at number 7 is because they couldn't put away this team that was hanging around a bit, and this incomplete team that you would expect a better performance from. And they play the Saints this weekend for the third time, and they've gotten wasted by the Saints both times. And so if we let history repeat itself, the Bucs really don't have that great of a chance of even advancing past this weekend. But we'll talk more about that game because I think we've got some interesting things to say about that. Speaking of the Saints, we have them at number 6. biggest thing for us here was we started pitting about who could beat who, and I think there's an argument to be made that the Saints can beat Cleveland or even Green Bay. Like, there's an argument to be made for all of it, but when you look at chances, probably the best chance they have is against Cleveland, and even then, if Cleveland had a game like they had on Sunday night, I don't think the Saints are winning, because this offensive line by the Browns is amazing. Their running game is fantastic, and Baker Mayfield has turned into a completely different quarterback. I'm sorry, I'm really late on this train. I think many people are late on this train. I think 80% of football fans are late on this train, and I'm one of those 80%. Pardue, you were one of the 20% who was on this train, so I give you props for it. But I would call Baker Mayfield at this point a top 10 quarterback. No question. He has really grown up in the second half of the season. I think it went from being an offense that just purely relied on the running game to an offense that still relies on the running game, but now has a quarterback who's making plays. So kind of like how Jared Goff was 2 years ago, but I think Baker Mayfield has a higher ceiling than Jared Goff. What do you think of that comparison?
Yeah, I would still say Baker Mayfield is way, way far ahead of Jared Goff.
Well, that's why I said higher ceiling.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not quite sure who I would compare Baker to. I was comparing the offense.
I was comparing the offenses.
Right. Yeah, I can pick up what you're putting down there. But yeah, like you said, Baker Mayfield's come a long way. In terms of the Saints here, don't get me wrong, this is a really good football team in the Saints. It's just, I don't know, man. Just something about them. I'm not thrilled with them. They don't mark me as a team that is a real threat in the NFC. Like, they struggled to put away the Bears. And if you're struggling to do that, especially when they had as many short fields as they did, like, I don't know, man.
I think the greatest way to describe the Saints, and I kind of was thinking about this as we were talking about it, you and I, they're not a closing team. When they have closed off against teams, it's usually been against the Saints. The Saints. It's usually against the Buccaneers or Denver. And you know what? They did close it off against Minnesota Christmas Day. But there's not many games that speak out, I think, outside of the Buccaneers games to me when I think of the Saints this year. Like, there's not many games that I look at and I say, I remember that game very fondly because of this, this, and this that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what you're looking for is there's nothing, like, uber special other than they arguably have one of the better rosters in the NFL.
Right, and I think that's the best way to put it, is there's nothing special about them, but they're just so well-rounded that they're able to win games. But you got to be special at something if you want to win a Super Bowl or win an NFC Championship game. And they are very, very good, but to me they're just not special. And that's what I guess is keeping them so low on, at least personally, my list of the final 8 teams.
Yeah, so when we were discussing this, I wanted to put the Saints at 5, but ultimately I agreed at 6 because I do think they have a low floor. Of the better teams, who, like, by the way, I would not write off the Saints completely, me personally. I think they can make a Super Bowl if certain things happen. I do believe that because this is one of the most well-rounded rosters in the NFL. This is a top 6 team, right? I think their biggest issue is quarterback, and I don't think that's Drew Brees' fault. It's just his age at this point, and they need to make up for that. They made up for that with Kamara. Michael Thomas, by the way, looked pretty okay in his first game return. It was just his first game, and he was playing against a great defense. So I was happy with how Michael Thomas performed. And the Saints' defense has always been good. They're a defensive team this year. So if they somehow, like what you were saying to me a few days ago, they're like the 2015 Denver Broncos. Well, guess what? The 2015 Denver Broncos won a Super Bowl with a running back that was not as good as Kamara. They won with Noshawn Moreno. Like, if you can win with Noshawn Moreno and a great defense, you could win with Alvin Kamara and a great defense, right? So I would say they have the lowest floor in terms of, like, offensive output, and that's what makes them lower on our list. I personally would like them at 5 because I think they could beat Cleveland, but we have Cleveland at 5, spoiler alert, and I'm kind of okay with that for the sake of, our official show rankings. I'm okay with putting up at 6 for our list. But I would like to remind the audience, even though we have them relatively low, this is a team that is the most well-rounded roster and could take on anyone because they are so well-rounded.
Yeah, and like you said, and like I know I sound like a hater on the Saints and everything.
Just
it's
a
just
smidge.
that, right? That's just my personal opinion and my personal take. Because you are right when you say that this team can win a Super Bowl, but when you said things need to go right for them, that's when I pull back. Teams that I'm picking to go to the Super Bowl and teams that I think are the elite of the elite, I can make a case that they don't need help to get to a Super Bowl. And in some ways, there's things that need to go right for the Saints for them to win a Super Bowl.
For me, the things that need to go right for the Saints is they just need to not play Green Bay. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
They just need to not play Green Bay. I think they can beat the Buccaneers and the Rams and go to a Super Bowl. And all you need is just to win one more game once you get to the Super Bowl, right? It's just one game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could call, let's just say they played Buffalo or Kansas City, right? I'd probably pick Buffalo or Kansas City, but an upset is called an upset for a reason, right? You got to win one game. At that point, it's just one game. So, but for me, the thing that has to go right is they just need to not play Green Bay. I picked Green Bay to beat them last time. Green Bay won 37-30. I'd pick Green Bay to beat them again. I think Green Bay's just a better team, so... We already said Cleveland was 5. Let's talk about why Cleveland is 5. So why are they at the top of the bottom 4 in our top 8 list? Cleveland, frankly, has issues in the secondary. And we've seen Baker grow. We've seen the running backs do well. And my problem is the wide receiver group in Cleveland. It's kind of been made up for the fact that Baker's playing so well. But outside of Jarvis Landry, I'm not really sure I trust anyone else on the receiving core. And I don't really trust anyone on the secondary. And when you look at the rest of the field, outside of the Rams, it's guaranteed everyone's going to be able to throw the ball on you, right? Probably the second lowest on that list for throwing would be Baltimore. But even then, I could see Hollywood Brown toasting them. He's already done it before, right? It happened on that Monday Night Football game. So that's really suspect for me. And their matchup this weekend doesn't bode well for them with a bad secondary. I think they need to get into I'm always going to maintain this. You need to score 35-plus points on the Chiefs. And they can do that. They just dropped 42 or 45 on the Steelers' defense. So it's quite possible they can do that. And they dropped 42 on Baltimore. They've dropped 40 burgers on 2 elite defenses. One that they beat in the postseason and one that they barely lost to at Monday Night Football. So this team has a lot of potential, but they need to not get caught in the secondary for them to win a Super Bowl, or at least prove that they are better than where we think they are at number 5. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the Cleveland team?
So, and maybe this is just a slight bit of bias. I do have family from Ohio, so I really, really am pulling for the Browns.
I think a lot of people are.
Right. And just like I love an underdog tale as well, and that's another big reason why I'm pulling for them is because I just want to see this team win a Super Bowl because I think their fans deserve it. The city of Cleveland deserves it after everything they've gone through over the last, 3 decades. So that being said, I do really like what they're doing. Like what they did to the Steelers on Sunday, especially in that first quarter, and I know like it kind of just started off with just a really bad swing and a bad momentum, flip on the very first snap.
And the first interception wasn't like, was it the first or second interception that was tipped?
I think I remember because I know that there was 4 total picks, and I'm pretty sure 2 of them were tipped. I don't remember exactly which one happened when, but I do remember one of them was it was either the first one or the second one.
Yeah, there was a combination of bad luck and Cleveland being able to take advantage of the bad luck in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm. And when you allow stuff like that, big plays like that to snowball, and you get down that bad in the playoffs that early, you could pretty much say goodnight. And that's almost the way it was. It seemed like the second, Cleveland was up 21 points with like 7 minutes still to go or something around there. And still the first quarter, you're just like, oh man. And the Steelers just look completely dysfunctional that you're like, wow, this might just be, not even close. And it ended up, the score was a lot closer than it actually was.
Yeah, 35, 45 was it?
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot that goes into that. I don't
think the last touchdown really counts. There was a minute left of the game.
And then the play calling obviously got pretty conservative down the stretch. Just try to conserve your lead, let the offense do its thing because they're doing enough to keep you in it. So ended up not being too big of a deal, but So I thought what the Browns did was really impressive.
I think we should address the elephant in the room for this Cleveland Steelers game. Was this Big Ben's last game? It looked like it on the sideline.
See, I don't know.
But I don't
Maybe
know.
It is his last game, but I think it's really hard because it's like a $45 million cap hit next year. That's a lot of money to leave on the table, and whether it's getting paid for by the Steelers or whether it's getting paid for by another team, because he gets traded, we'll wait and see. But I'm not sure. Like I feel like Big Ben comes back, but what do I know? I think he's still got some left in the tank. How much, I'm not sure. I don't know. I just think that's a lot of money to leave on the table, even if you've secured your bag.
I don't know. I don't really have an answer for you. I was just wondering what you thought. So that's Cleveland at 5. And then another AFC North team, we're going to stay there. We have at 4. We have the Baltimore Ravens at 4. Now, I'll tell you this right now. On paper, I don't think this game was impressive because it was a 20-13 score. But I think when you consider everything that went into it, the fact that Baltimore was down 0-10 at one point, the fact that they were going into Tennessee, and there was a lot of disrespect amongst these teams, let alone the fact that you think about the team dancing on Baltimore's logo and whatever you want to make of that, and Vrabel and Harbaugh having their little spiff or whatever you want to call it. Forget that for a second. Think about the fact that, in this game, I'm surprised there were no fights, honestly, because there was a point where I think Lamar had his pass was batted down on third down, and Kenny Vaccaro flipped him off just right in front of the ref or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then Lamar was jabbing at him a bit. And then at the very end of the game, when Lamar sealed the game with the first down run, all he did was point at Vaccaro mockingly. Lots of players didn't go shake hands with the other Titans players. There was just a lot of non-gamesmanship with these two teams going in. And I think there was a lot of frustration built up too with the idea that Baltimore knew if they stopped Derrick Henry, there wasn't much they were going to do, and they didn't get a single first down with the running game. Mm-hmm. Right? So Derrick Henry or a backup did not get a first down. Derrick Henry, I know you didn't see it, had some arguments with Mike Vrabel on the sideline, so clearly Derrick Henry was frustrated with what was going on. I think he was frustrated with the 4th and 2 call. They were on their 40, and they called to punt it instead. A piece of me says you need to run that because you have Derrick Henry, and you're in the playoffs. And if you fail, well, you fail, right? You're giving the ball over anyway if you punt it. The other side of it is Mike Vrabel might have known we're not going to get the first down because they've been stopping us all game. Why would we get it now? Why would we get 2 yards now? Because there was some negative yardage Derrick Henry was getting. There was some 1 yard carries, 2 yard carries. I think his longest carry of the day was 7 yards. I think it was 19 carries is what he had. Something ridiculous. Either way, Derrick Henry didn't have a good day. Tannehill had a decent day, I would say. But even then, when Tannehill was throwing the ball, if it wasn't A.J. Brown, there wasn't a lot going on for the receivers. So the Baltimore defense just had a total defensive shutdown, which places them in the top 4. Right? They shut down the number 1 offense in the league. And the offense of Baltimore was able to get past their mistakes early on, which they have not shown to do against winning teams before. So I would say that's why we got them on the lower end of the top 4. I think top defense, they've now shown an ability that they want to stick to why they win on offense. And Lamar didn't make mistakes upon mistakes after the first one. Those are my takeaways from that game overall. And I think why we have them at 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what the Ravens did was actually really impressive, in my opinion, especially when the Titans got up early. They were able to come back from 10 down and score at 17 unanswered.
Yeah.
So what the Ravens did impress me. And then, I don't get it, man. Like, even I've kind of, slandered Lamar a little bit. I mean, I do it as a joke. And because
he says it's a joke.
Right. No, really, it is a joke. You know it's a joke.
I'm messing with you,
right?
Bro. I know.
Because I've defended him more than anyone. At least that's not a Ravens fan. But I think the people who are slandering Lamar because he only had like 170 pass yards
and 180 rushing yards, wasn't that
right? Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, it was something ridiculous like that, and they were like, "Oh, well, he has all these pass yards or all these rush yards, and he can't throw this, that, and the other." I'm like, it's not that he can't throw, but number one, it wasn't really working offensively anyway. So why are you going to force something that's not working offensively?
When you can just run the ball and they can't stop it.
Right. And on top of that, why do people hold quarterbacks' ability to run like Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson against that quarterback? Because number one, that's what this league is going to. All quarterbacks now need to have some sort of athletic ability. Even in the guys that are now considered statues, like the younger guys, like Joe
Aaron
Burrow,
Rodgers,
Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. Those guys can all move and move really well. It's not like these guys. The traditional statue doesn't exist anymore. And when you have an elite
they're about to retire if they still do.
Right. And when you have an elite runner at quarterback, it's such an advantage for your offense because it's one huge thing that the defensive coordinators have to try and defend now, as well as the running back and the receivers and the tight ends and everything else. And then if you're spying a quarterback, you have to take one player completely in your defense, make them throw away whatever assignments they have just to watch them. That's so huge for an offense. I don't understand why guys like Lamar get bashed for that. But Lamar had a good game. Obviously, he didn't have a great game passing. It's something he still needs to improve on. But I think at this point, we kind of just need to accept this is the guy that Lamar is. He's not. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite passer.
No.
He's a good passer, don't get me wrong, but he's not going to be some otherworldly quarterback. He's never going to throw for 4,500 yards or something like that. He's going to be about, a 3,500 to 4,000 yard passer for the rest of his career and, upwards of, 1,000 to 1,200 yards a year. That's the quarterback that Lamar Jackson is. And we haven't seen it before. We haven't really seen that before. So it's special, and we need to kind of take it and appreciate it because what Lamar Jackson's doing is really, really good. And he finally got his first playoff victory. And so we can finally, get rid of that stupid narrative that he can't win playoff games when he's only played in 2 of them. So
I think the big thing for Lamar, I was telling you this earlier, I think Lamar, because he's such a unique player, his stats need to be viewed in total yardage.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, Tom Brady can throw for 360 yards, and he's going to rush for 1. Because he got, like, a rushing touchdown or whatever for 1 yard, right? So Tom Brady's total yardage is 361. 360 passing, 1 rushing. When you put Lamar's 140-something pass yards, it doesn't look good, but combine it with his 170 rushing yards, suddenly he has a 310-yard game. He contributed 310 yards. So I think... And I wish, it's not going to happen, but I wish media and just people in general would consider Lamar as the whole, not Lamar as the one half. Because very clearly he's not just a passer, he is also a runner. He's the very definition of what a running quarterback is supposed to be and what we wanted Michael Vick to be and what we thought Colin Kaepernick was going to be and what we thought Jamarcus Russell can turn into. None of those guys, not Jamarcus Russell, he was the quarterback for the Raiders, though. Tyrod Taylor. No, not Tyrod Taylor. What's his name? Terrell Pryor. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is, I think Lamar's a guy who actually has an arm, and he has a uniqueness for making some really weird throws. Like, I don't know if you've paid attention to his sidearm throws, but those are always goofy to me. But that's also an advantage, I think, because those sidearms let you do some special types of throws. I mean, Rodgers does it, Mahomes does it, and he has the capability of doing that too. Not many quarterbacks have that ability. Like, there are just some throws that I see Lamar, and I'm like, yeah, he's in the elite category for those type of throws. Unfortunately, Lamar's decision making just isn't as good as those other quarterbacks. I will admit that, and his accuracy can be slightly off sometimes, and it's caused those interceptions to happen. When I examine his deep shot interceptions, I feel like they're more decision making than it is accuracy. Like the interception he threw against Tennessee, I 100% feel is like a decision that he made. I feel like he meant to throw it at that spot, and it was a bad decision. Because they were even saying, they're like, why is he throwing it there? He should be throwing it over here. So I think he made the decision to throw it there and thought Boykins would get it because Boykins was in front of the receiver. Unfortunately, Boykin had momentum going off to the right. So the pass is fully on Lamar. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve blame, but I feel like it was more of a bad decision made than it was an accuracy issue. But he does still have some accuracy issues at times. This turned into a Lamar conversation. Is there anything else we should say about Baltimore? I don't think. I know, but Lamar had this.
I got nothing left.
I know Lamar had the story for the game. If Lamar Jackson wasn't the quarterback, like let's just say Joe Flacco was the quarterback, I think the story would have been the defense. They held the best offense in the number one offense in the league to 202 yards, and the best running back in the league to 40 yards. Like, holy shit, dude. That's how I feel about it. I feel like the Ravens learned last year they needed a run stuffer. They hired Calais Campbell, and they got what they wanted out of it. They got exactly what they bought him for. They're like, we need you to stop a guy like Derrick Henry. Boom, done. So I think the Baltimore defense isn't getting talked about enough because I think their performance was better than what Lamar or the offense did, but the narrative's around Lamar, so the media is going to push that. Number 3, we have in Kansas City. Why do we have them at number 3 and not top 2? I don't know why you do. I know we both agreed to it, but we didn't really discuss why. My reasoning is because after going through a lot of film and also having another film analysis guru actually have the same thoughts that I do, I'm thoroughly convinced that Kansas City this year is a boom or bust offense that booms 80% of the time. So they boom a lot, right? They boom a lot. But when they bust, it's like quarters at a time and they stall. And I'm waiting for them to meet the defense that makes them stall more than they want to and forces them to play dink and dunk football. And the Chiefs are physically incapable of playing dink and dunk football. You want proof? Watch the Falcons-Chiefs game. That's all the Falcons made them do. They played 2 high safety coverages. They played multiple 2 high safety coverages, but they played 2 safeties in the game and said, we're going to double team Tyreek Hill and we're going to double team your other speedster, whether it's McCole Hardman or DeMarcus Robinson. Beat us in the middle of the field. And Kansas City could not do that. They couldn't. The one touchdown that saved them when the game was originally 14-10 was a 32-yarder to Kelsey. So again, a deep shot. Nothing to do with the middle of the field. A deep shot. This is a deep offense, and they are fantastic at it because they have the speed, and they take advantage of defenses when they like to blitz because they are the number 1 team against the blitz. But my biggest issue with them is they can't work the middle of the field that well. They're one of the worst teams offensively on first and second down, but they're like I think the number 2 offense on third down. So my biggest issue is Kansas City's offense, which is weird to say because I know they're going to score like 30-plus points. But they scored 30-plus points because teams attack them in a traditional way. Fight first down, fight second down, and then blitz on the third down. Well, haha, joke's on you. Kansas City loves it when you blitz. Why the fuck are we still blitzing against them on third down? I don't know. I don't know why my team keeps blitzing against them. I don't know why any team keeps blitzing against them. We know they're the best against the blitz. I know you have to show them blitz coverages sometimes, but man, you need to do it way less. You should be doing way more zone coverages and way more 2 safety coverages on the top. That's how you beat this team. Whether teams do that, I don't know. Whether Cleveland tries to do that, I don't know. On the other hand, the Chiefs' red zone defense is terrible. They're bottom 5. When you get into the red zone, they let you score. Baltimore and Cleveland and the Bills are all high-scoring offenses. One of them's going to get them. I don't think Kansas City makes it to the Super Bowl because of that, and that's why I have them at number 3.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you're saying. For me, the Kansas City defense, it's not really that good. And like you said, every time they allowing teams to get in the red zone, they are giving up points. And then offensively, they just don't seem to be the same. This is a team that struggled to put up 17 points on the Falcons. And very nearly, let the Falcons send it to overtime, and they could have won. So it's not that the Chiefs don't have the ability to go on a run and win a Super Bowl. They just did it last year, and this team could go down 28 points upcoming this weekend against the Browns, and I could still, totally see a scenario where they come back and win no problem because they did it 3 different times last year in the playoffs. So they're going to be okay. They're going to make noise. They're probably, even though I don't want them to, going to beat the Browns on Sunday and be in the AFC Championship. But somebody is going to hurt that team. And honestly, I can't see them as of right now in the Super Bowl. Let's see how they look this coming weekend before I can, because this team could jump up to number 1 in this list after I watch 1 quarter of football this weekend. So I'm gonna need to see it from them.
Yeah, and it depends on how the Buffalo-Baltimore game goes as well, because we have them smack dab in between those 2 teams.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we got them. Buffalo, number 2. I'm gonna be honest. This might be a little high for them, but we have Buffalo making the Super Bowl at the moment still, which is why we have them at number 2. But, man, they looked really vulnerable against Indianapolis. And they looked vulnerable in the running game, which spells disaster for them because they're playing the number 1 rushing offense. Not number 1 rushing player, but the number 1 rushing offense in the league. On the flip side of this, I want to defend Buffalo because they're also – get this, and this is what makes me scared as a fan. Not as an analyst, as a fan. I know Patrick Mahomes is our doom because we blitz a ton. And we have not shown the capability to not blitz. This is what we do. And Patrick Mahomes is the very best against it. I saw a stat today that made me hate myself. And it's that Josh Allen was the 3rd best QB this year against the blitz. 3rd best. And I was like, man, fuck me. It's just Patrick Mahomes 2.0. Fantastic. So Buffalo is playing against a defense this weekend who loves to blitz, and they have the offense that likes that kind of thing. They love it when you leave Stephon Diggs one-on-one. They love it when you leave Cole Beasley one-on-one. And is John Brown supposed to be finally back?
I mean, he played this last game, didn't he?
Didn't he get hurt again, though, if I remember? Or am I remembering this incorrectly?
I don't recall.
Either way, though, like when you leave any of those guys, 1-to-1, it's kind of not good. So, and it's also, I guess you could call it a John Brown revenge game. I don't. I think he was treated really well in Baltimore before he left, but you always want to beat your former team, so he could be extra motivated. But they like it when you leave them one-on-one, and that's what Baltimore's going to do because they trust Peters and Marlon Humphrey, and they trust their safeties in Deshaun Elliott and Chuck Clark. However, I think Buffalo has the answers to what Baltimore's going to give them, and I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo had the type of success that Kansas City has had, where they drop 30-plus points on this defense, because this defense tries to play to its strengths, and it so turns out that the Baltimore defense's strengths is what also plays into Buffalo's strengths, if that makes sense. My only concern for them is they can't defend against the run. So if Buffalo and they do meet Baltimore this weekend, so that is a concern for them. I don't think it's out of the question for Baltimore to beat Buffalo. But let's just say Cleveland won and Buffalo won. I think that's also a bad matchup for Buffalo. Because, again, they seem to not be able to play against the run. We saw the Colts do it to them and almost win because of that. And I would I think Cleveland's better than Indianapolis, and their running game is much better than Indianapolis's, right? I think I think their Achilles heel is their run defense. But other than that, I like where they're at everywhere else, and that's why we got them at number 2, I think.
Yeah, I really like this Bills team. There's a reason why I'm picking them to be the representative in the AFC. Their defense is a little bit concerning, but their offense can do enough where it's not, terrifying. It's not going to hold this. It's going to hold the team back a little bit, but it's not so bad that you're going to fear it's going to completely wreck this team. The one thing with the matchup this weekend with the Bills is I do think this Ravens defense matches up extremely well, and your run game was already hurting, and now you just lost your number 1 running back in Zach Moss. So to be able to not, they're not going to be able to produce a running game that's not Josh Allen running. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do outside that to, try and produce a running game. But with that being said, I think I'm trying to think about how I want to put this. I really like the Bills, and I think I don't know. I think the Ravens are actually going to give them a pretty good run for their money. I don't like the matchup this weekend. The offense of the Bills really needs to have an excellent game against a great secondary, and Stephon Diggs is going to need to have a great game if they're going to want to win. I do have the faith because I think they're probably the best overall team in the AFC right now, but the matchup this weekend will be interesting.
Alrighty then. Sounds good. And then that leaves us with Green Bay. Green Bay's number 1. They've got, I'm going to say it, he's going to be the MVP. They got MVP Aaron Rodgers. They got Aaron Jones. They got backup behind Aaron Jones and Dillon. He had a pop-off game against Tennessee. Devontae Adams. I admit their wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 is a weakness, but Aaron Rodgers can make up for those weaknesses, and he has. We've seen that he still trusts Valdez-Scantling and Alan Lazard at times, so it's not like he only throws the ball to Devontae Adams. The only thing that would make me change Green Bay from being number 1 is if they were playing against a team who was going to run the ball against them a lot, which the Rams are going to do this weekend, but I don't think their offense is competent enough to make up for it if the Green Bay defense decided to all in the running game. Usually when you all in a running game, you say, all right, we'll beat you with the pass. I don't think that's happening with the Rams, right, this weekend. Mm-hmm. And they didn't play a game, so we have nothing to go off of, but they still looked really damn good week 17. They beat the Bears better than the Saints could. This is the team I see winning the Super Bowl this year. I think it would be well-deserved for the team. I like it for Matt LaFleur. I like it for Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't been in the limelight recently until this year again. I think it would be perfect for like the twilight of his career to get another Super Bowl. I kind of wanted Aaron Rodgers to get another Super Bowl for a while. This is going to sound kind of weird because people love to talk about Aaron Rodgers, but I think people talk about Aaron Rodgers because he's a Green Bay football quarterback. I think if he was on any other team, he wouldn't get talked about as much. I feel like he'd be like Deshaun Watson. You'd talk about him, but like not like he is now, if that makes sense. Like we talk about Deshaun Watson, but not enough. Sometimes it feels like. I feel like Aaron Rodgers would be in that category, but except he plays for Green Bay, one of the most storied organizations. So, of course, they're going to talk about him. I don't think he gets enough love and appreciation for just how good he is, and the fact that he is physically a better quarterback than Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. I'm not going to place them in a quarterback rankings over Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, but physically, he makes better throws than Peyton Manning and Tom Brady ever could. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I mean, can anyone really deny that? Like, is that a hot take? I don't think it is. Like, is that a hot take or?
I mean, in terms of physical gifts, in terms of like quarterback play itself, Aaron Rodgers is definitely better than both of them. I think if you're looking at the player and who they are and not their accomplishments, Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback of all time, to be quite honest.
Probably, right? Maybe Patrick Mahomes takes over that eventually, but Aaron Rodgers is like the Michael Jordan of football. when it comes to quarterbacks. Athletically gifted, always has his team in it, but at the same time, and you could say the same about Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson, you can have great quarterback play, but the thing is you still need key pieces around that great quarterback because it is a team game at the end of the day. And they have a team. They have a good secondary. Their run defense is a little suspect, I will admit. They have a pass rush. They have an offensive line. Even after Bakhtiari, however you say his name, got injured, they still looked pretty good week 17 running the ball against a good Bears defense. I have full confidence this team is going to take the Lombardi back to where it all started 60 years ago or 50 years ago.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to pick against the Packers. Aaron Rodgers was just absolutely insane this weekend, and every time I look at his touchdown to interception ratio, I just kind of am in awe of how that's even possible. It's like 46-5, just insane. Yeah, there's not much more I need to say going off of what you said, so I'm going to kind of leave it at that. They're the favorites in the NFC, and honestly, I think the favorite in the NFL right now. I think they're a very well-rounded team. They got a good defense, a great running game, and obviously, arguably the best receiver in the National Football League right now, Davante Adams. So, yeah, it's hard to pick against them, but I'm going to go, Packers.
So you want to know what his touchdown to interception ratio is for his career?
Isn't it like 46-5?
No. I meant for his career.
Oh, what's that?
He has a 4.62 touchdown to 1 interception ratio. So every time he throws an interception, he's thrown at least 4.5 touchdowns before that next interception. And here's the big thing. Most of those interceptions were in the beginning of his career, and the last 6 years, not much. Not much. He has thrown 89 total interceptions in his career and 412 touchdowns.
Jeez.
Yes.
That's just insane.
He is a full 1.5 better than Tom Brady. A full touchdown and a half. Man, here's what's crazy to me. He's only thrown 89 interceptions in 197 games, first of all. And he's only thrown 89 interceptions in 6,587 pass attempts.
Jeez.
Can you imagine throwing the ball almost 6,600 times in the NFL and claiming it's only been intercepted 89 times?
Mm-hmm.
Insanity. The only person that's higher him for touchdown ratio is Patrick Mahomes right now, and while that's cool and all, Patrick Mahomes is nowhere near the level of attempts and years that Rodgers is in. So let's talk about that 10 years from now.
He's also had like 16 dropped interceptions this year, which is an NFL record. So
yeah. So we gotta top. That's our top 8: Green Bay, Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, Cleveland, Saints, Bucks, LA Rams. If you don't like it, stay mad. Anyways, this Saturday, we got the Rams and the Packers. I think we've kind of already talked about this because one's our number 1 team, one's our number 8 team. I don't think we have much more to say about it. We've kind of already talked about how we think it looks going forward. Unless, like, the Rams just, like, run it down Green Bay's throat because their run defense is a little suspect, I don't anticipate the Rams to beat them. I think this will be a tough matchup for the Packers to win, but they still win in the end in, like, a 24-14 situation, some low-scoring affair, right, where, like, they get a couple, like, open, or, like, Aaron Rodgers finds the soft spots and they get a big play because of it, and that's how they march down the field, but then they struggle for yards. I don't anticipate Green Bay to light it up, is what I'm saying, even though I think they'll win. And the reason I think they'll win is because I don't think the Rams are going to score because, A, they don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be, but B, it's probably Jared Goff, honestly. Like, I think we should stop saying it's probably going to be Jared Goff this weekend. But, like, who's their backup if Goff gets hurt? So we don't know because Wolford is clearly not going to play with a neck injury.
It'll probably be Blake Bortles, I can imagine.
Probably
maybe.
Blake Bortles. Yeah, and I can't imagine Blake Bortles beating the Packers either. There's just not a lot to like about the Rams, I feel, outside of just Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. And we could argue Jalen Ramsey takes Davante Adams out of the game. And while Valdez-Scantling and Alan Lazard aren't amazing, is the Rams' second cornerback good enough to beat Aaron Rodgers and those two guys? I don't think so. I feel like Aaron Rodgers would identify the other side and say, hey, he's doing this, so Lazard, you need to do this. Or, hey, he's doing this, so Scantling, please do that. And I'll throw the ball right there.
Yeah, so when I'm looking at this matchup, basically exactly what you said. It's going to be a really tough matchup. I don't expect the Rams to win this game. But with that being said, if their defense comes out and performs the way it should, it's going to be a game. And I just don't expect the Rams offense to do enough to win it for them. But with that being said, I do think Jalen Ramsey will shut down Davante Adams for the most part. And I know Davante Adams is arguably the best receiver in the league right now, but
He's
I also saw Jalen Ramsey,
the best quarter in the league.
Yeah. I saw Jalen Ramsey shut down D-Hop basically twice this year. Jalen Ramsey's been there, done that with these number one receivers multiple times this year, and he's played well in all of those games. I'm not worried about Davante Adams completely wrecking this game because I honestly don't think it's going to happen. So it's going to be on the other guys, and it's going to be on their run game, and it's going to be hard to run against this team too. They're going to have to grind this out, and Jared Goff will likely play, and he's playing with an injured hand, and he's already a guy who's very, very turnover prone. So he's playing with an injured hand, and he's turning the football over and giving them short fields. They're really not going to stand a chance, and that's kind of how I see the game going. So kind of like going off of what you said, I see the Packers winning by about 10 points. I'm going to say final score probably 27-13.
That's about what I got. I had it like 24-14. So we're in agreement here with how it's going to work. Yeah, I'm not totally opposed to that. So let's move on to the Saturday night game, which is actually the Sunday night football game with NBC. It's going to be Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth with, I should have said, the Rams-Packers game will, I'm guessing, is going to be Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Maybe not, because Fox has NFC's Saturday morning game, but then Fox also has the Sunday night game. So I don't know where Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are going to go. I could probably do a better Google search and probably find out. But as of right now, Fox has Green Bay Rams, and then NBC has Baltimore Buffalo. Why don't you start with Baltimore Buffalo first? Because I don't need my bias ass talking about this game right now.
So I'm going to look at this in the perspective of the Ravens to start off. The Ravens defense is obviously very, very legit. They just shut down the number one offense in the league in the Titans this last week, and they held Derrick Henry to, 19 carries for, remind me, how many yards?
40. Like, straight up, just 40.
So, just barely over 2 yards a carry to the best running back in the National Football League. So, it's going to be tough sledding for an already very bad run game with the Bills. If they're not going to be able to get the run game going, I know Josh Allen is a very, very great quarterback. He's one of my favorites in the league right now. He's very, very fun to watch. But if they're not able to get any sort of run game going against this defense, it's going to be really tough sledding, because if you're going to allow this secondary just to play coverage, because that's really what it comes down to. This Ravens secondary, name a better one in the league, to be quite honest. I don't think you can.
I'm legit trying right now, actually.
Right, and I don't think you can. So, with that being said, if you're able to shut down Stephon Diggs, and I don't think you're going to completely shut him down, and I know I really like Marlon Humphrey. He's one of my favorite defensive backs in the league. But I also saw one of my very favorite wide receivers, A.J. Brown, bitch him up pretty good this last week as well.
I would. So sorry, I'm interrupting. I would say maybe the Rams. Just saying.
I'm sorry, what?
I would say maybe the Rams, throwing that one out there.
I mean, yeah, I would still say overall, in terms of from top to bottom, it's the Ravens.
I'm not going to completely disagree, but I'm trying to throw another name out there.
But anyway, so Sorry, you threw me off my train a little bit. So I think as long as the Bills, even if it's just a running game with Josh Allen, if you can keep them honest with like read options and stuff like that and open up play action, that the Bills should be in good shape. So it's going to be tough though. And now on the Ravens offensively, it makes me a little nervous because we talked about it earlier about how we need to respect the way Lamar Jackson plays the game. He is an athletic quarterback, and we need to stop using his running ability as a knock. But the passing is still it's not a weakness, but it's not the strength it needs to be. And in playoff games, it is going to hold him back. And if he's going to rush for, 180, 200 yards, then I guess it's not too big of a deal. But that's not going to happen every game. And I know it's Lamar Jackson. He pops off for a lot of rush yards every now and then. But while I think the total yardage was definitely there for Lamar Jackson in this last game, I felt like the Bills conceptually held him in check fairly decently.
You mean the Titans?
Yes, sorry. The Titans held him in check fairly decently because obviously in the grand scheme, he still got off for however many yards. But I think a lot of that came just on individual plays where he just, ran it for 30, 40, 50 yards. And if that's going to be how you achieve getting your chunk plays and achieve getting your offense, that's not going to be consistent enough in my eyes to win a game against the Bills. Now, like I said, if the Bills can't get a running game going and the Ravens can control the clock and their defense shows out and they can contain Stephon Diggs, the Ravens are going to win this game. But I just think with the power of the Bills' offense, they should be able to do enough to overpower the Ravens offense. And maybe I'm wrong, but no disrespect to the Ravens. I think I got to go Bills here, but I also have a really strong feeling I'm going to be wrong because I just don't think this matchup is quite favorable for the Bills.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, dude. When I first saw this matchup, I was like, yeah, we're screwed because we're going to lose to Buffalo or Kansas City. And then I looked at it more and more and more. Stats, watched that game on Saturday against Indy, and I was like, we got a real shot at killing Buffalo in New York. We really do. Mm-hmm. Because their run defense is so suspect. And that's the number one thing Baltimore does, right? They pound the rock. And even if you hold them in check for the first two quarters, I guarantee you by quarter 3, quarter 4, and here's the best part, because none of these running backs are technically, J.K. Dobbins is the show of the star of the show at the moment when it comes to the running back committee, but let's be honest. In Week 17, they had Mark Ingram run for 9 carries, Gus Edwards run for 12, Lamar Jackson for 8, and J.K. Dobbins for 13. Nobody's going to get worn down by the third or fourth quarter because they won't have had enough reps. The defense will be. I think what this comes down to is, do the Bills build a big enough lead in the first half so the Ravens don't rally? Because I truly believe if the Ravens get ahead, they stay ahead and Buffalo doesn't make it back. That's my feeling. I don't think they'll make it back. On the other side of this, I've seen this Baltimore secondary get burned at times when it gets hurt. It's not hurt going into this game. But for whatever reason, they have refused to stay healthy this season. I'm thinking an injury might happen this weekend. This is bad analysis because I'm basing it off an injury, but I truly believe it will happen. Not because I have some sneaking suspicion or because I'm What was I saying?
Injury.
I was talking about injuries, and I was talking about how the secondary. I don't know where I was going with that. I just totally blanked. Oh yeah, I'm not saying this because I'm some conspiracy theorist. It's just what's been happening for them all season. And the second that happens is the second it's a little more open for Stephon Diggs, and it's a little more open for the subliminal receivers like Cole Beasley and John Brown. They're going to have – the secondary is going to have their hands full, and I don't know what kind of game plan they're going to come up with. I hope it's not a blitzing game plan. Holy moly, I hope it's not. I'm tired of seeing – I love our blitzing defense, don't get me wrong, but I also hate seeing us stick to the blitz when we know fully well, or at least everyone and their mother knows full well it's not going to work. And I don't think it's going to work against Buffalo. They need a different defensive game plan. So I think it comes down to that. And I also think early on, the Ravens struggle offensively. And even if they do make it a game, I anticipate this to be like a 28-31 game. Or 27-31 game. Where Buffalo has 31, Baltimore's 27. I give my team a lot of credit. I think they're going to make this a game. And a piece of me truly believes they're going to win on Saturday night. But the analyst in me can't deny that Buffalo is the better team. And I have to pick the better team. At least in this moment. Trust me.
Yeah.
There's a wild fan side of me that says we're going to win this Saturday. We truly are going to. But the analyst in me says I need to hold on for a second and recognize that usually the better team wins. Usually. And Buffalo currently is the better team.
Yeah, I didn't give my score, but I think this one's going to be relatively high scoring. And I'm going to go Bills 34-31. Only a 3-point game.
All right, sounds good to me. So we both got Buffalo winning, and we both got Green Bay winning on Saturday. By the way, you and I both went 3-1, or not 3-1. Mm-hmm. We both went 5-1 last week. So in other words, you're still one game ahead of me.
Yes, sir.
Yikes! Cleveland, Kansas City. I'll let you take this one as well. What you got?
So, as my Twitter says, I'm a temporary Browns fan for the playoffs here.
I love that, by the way. I do love that.
Yeah. I'm cheering for the underdog tail. Now, do I expect that to happen? No, I don't.
It's the reason there's called the underdog tail, right?
Right, exactly. So I'm all in on the Browns, but it's going to be really tough for them this weekend. It's really hard to pick against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes in any situation. And coming off of a week of rest, it's even more difficult to pick them. Or pick against them. Now, I really like what the Browns did this weekend, and people are going to point to their defense gave up however many points. It was like 35 points. I think there's a lot that goes into that. I think the play calling for the Browns got really conservative down the stretch. And they were playing a lot of really soft coverages, so that allowed receivers to get open. And Big Ben's a veteran quarterback; he's going to go off on that. He had 500 yards for a reason, but it's not because Big Ben's elite anymore. It was because the Browns were playing really soft, and Big Ben had to throw 68 times to do that. So, overall, I like what the Browns did against the Steelers, and they're going to have to repeat it in terms of making plays defensively. It can't just be the offense keeping them in the game, because this Browns defense isn't going to stop the Chiefs. They can only hope to limit them and force them into mistakes. And now Patrick Mahomes has forced himself into a lot of mistakes this year. He, like I said previously, and like I've said multiple times in the podcast, he has 16 dropped interceptions this year. So if you're the Browns, if you get that ball in your hands, you cannot drop that. You need to catch that ball, and you need to play. You can't be playing a field position battle in this game, because they will beat you every time playing a field position battle. So if you're the Browns, you got to force them into mistakes, and you got to force them into mistakes early and often if you're going to want to win this game. But we've seen it time and time again that the Chiefs don't make a lot of mistakes, and I can see the scenario where the Browns score 35 plus. But in this game, I think it's a game where the Chiefs are able to score 40 plus. So I'm gonna go with the Chiefs 42-38.
Man, that's a really high-scoring game. I pretty much am on board with what you're saying. There's a scenario where the Browns control this game by running a lot and keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field. And there's a scenario where they employ the right defensive coverages to stop the Chiefs' offense at certain points. Now, the Chiefs' offense is going to get theirs. That's just almost a guarantee. They're going to get theirs. But for me, a big part of this, and I hate saying this, but it's kind of true, is home field advantage, especially with the Chiefs and a crowd that currently is defending championships and a crowd that, for whatever reason, believes their backs are against the wall. I don't know why. They're the number one seed. It is dumb, but I think people are taking the criticism fans are taking the criticism too harshly. Like, if I walked up to a Chiefs fan and said, "Hey, your offense is boom or bust," holy fuck, bro. They wouldn't even listen to me, or they would just stop me right there. They wouldn't listen to me say, "Hey, it's an 80% boom. You're booming 8 out of 10 times, 4 out of 5 times. That's really good. That's why you're doing so well," right? But they would just hate that I put the boomer bust connotation on it. But it's true. It's 100% true when you watch the tape and watch the games. There's a reason they're having several 3-and-outs in a row or several 5-and-outs in a row, because they don't play well on first and second down. So there's a situation where the Browns take advantage of this, and maybe they have an interception spree like against they have an interception spree against Mahomes like they did the Steelers, right? But we've also seen a team have an interception spree and not win, the Dolphins, right? So at the end of the day, I'm not betting against the Chiefs at this moment. You need to score 35-plus points, and I actually don't think the Browns are going to do that either, which is why I was like, wow, he has a really high-scoring game. I got this game like 35-31, or maybe some really odd score like 37-32, where the Browns don't meet that 35-plus point mark, and the Chiefs do. So I still expect 60-plus points in the game.
Yeah, I think we're in for a shootout.
Yeah, for sure. No matter what, I don't think either team is under 30 points. And this game should be fun because this is also the Jim Nantz Tony Romo game. So that'll be nice. And I did look it up. The Packers Rams Fox game, that's going to be Kevin Burkhardt and Daryl Johnston with Pam Oliver, and the Bucks Saints one will be the Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Aaron Andrews game. I don't know what to say about this Bucks Saints game, mostly because a huge piece of me wants to really pick the Buccaneers because I picked the Buccaneers the second time to win. The first time I picked the Saints. I'm like, the Buccaneers, they just got Tom Brady. It's going to take a while. Tom Brady's very advanced. The receivers there are not. They got to get used to him. Blah, 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 blah. Saints. Then the second time around, I was like, all right, they figured it out. Go Bucks. And then they were embarrassed on national television. It wasn't even close. It was so bad. Like, it was like Browns Steelers bad on Sunday night, right? They were ahead like 28-0 with 10 minutes left in the second quarter, weren't they? Mm-hmm. It was over. The game was over. And even Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth were talking about how they had not casted a game in a long time where it felt like the game was over in the first quarter. And they were saying that in the fourth quarter. Yeah, this game felt like it was over in the first quarter. Because it was. And this Saints team really hasn't changed since then. They're a defensive team. They make plays with Kamara, and Michael Thomas sometimes does something. And Michael Thomas wasn't even in that game, by the way. Mm-hmm. I would like to say I think Emmanuel Sanders has done more than he's given credit for, too. I like what Emmanuel Sanders has done this year for them. It's not like eye-popping on the stat sheet, but when you watch the plays, he gives a lot of support for when Michael Thomas is coverage. Emmanuel Sanders is there for Breeze or Hill. But on the other side, you have a Buccaneers team where the defense theoretically should consistently be top 5, and they're not. You have an offense that should consistently be top 3, and they're not. Part of this falls on coaching with Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles, who are like an anomaly to me, because I hate to say this because it's not the same offense. It's not, but they truly remind me of the Arizona Cardinals, not in 2015, but correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say that it's the 2013 Cardinals they remind me of.
Where they went 10-6. Well,
yes.
The thing is with the 2013 Cardinals is they started off 4-4, and then kind of finally figured out how to play with one another, and then finished,
Yeah, is that not the story of this Bucs team?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's fair. I felt like the Buccaneers have kind of just been consistent for the most part with what they were all year. I think they just kind of had some bad games and some good games, and it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So yeah, I guess you can make that comparison. It's the first year basically under a new regime, so it took some time.
So that's kind of how I compare them to, and that unfortunately for that team, they did not make the playoffs at 10-6, but a 7-8-1 Packers team made it that year. I remember that so vividly. How pissed you were, but so that's the team they remind me of, right? A team that I admit they're better than I thought they were going to be. I thought they'd be a 9-10 win team. They're 11-5, and I thought they'd win a playoff game. Well, here we are, and I give them a chance to beat this Saints team. And for a while, I was like, man, I don't think the Saints are going to 3-0 them. I'm pretty sure this Buccaneers defense is going to take advantage of Drew Brees underthrowing. I'm pretty sure, Tom Brady will do it. But last time I said that, the Saints defense killed them. And they haven't been consistent enough on offense for me to truly believe they've gotten past that demon of playing against an elite defense. They struggled against Washington. And I understand Washington is a very good defense, but they're not the Saints defense either. Saints defense is better. Up till this morning, was picking Tampa Bay, and I'm actually picking New Orleans. And what I think is going to be, I'm not going to lie, probably the most boring game of this weekend. Rams-Packers will probably be boring too, but when you compare hype to result, I think this game is going to be very hyped because it's Drew Brees versus Tom Brady, third time meeting up, NFC South rivals. It's a great on-paper ratings matchup. Saints fans always watch their games. It's probably going to get a ton of ratings also because Tom Brady's there. And I'm sure Patriots fans will be cheering for him. At the end of the day, maybe I'm underselling Tom Brady's ability to just pull it out of his butt. I'm not sure this offense is prepared and gels well enough to beat a cohesive Saints defense. That's really what this comes down to for me. So I'm unfortunate. I don't want to say unfortunately. I want the Bucs to win, mostly just because I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of a Tom Brady person at this point. I have been ever since he beat the Falcons. I think everyone who talks football with me knows this. I have a new appreciation for him, and I would love for him to play a Super Bowl in a home crowd, just so we can say as an NFL story, the greatest quarterback of all time was the first and only quarterback to ever play a Super Bowl in his home field. I think that'd be amazing to say. Regardless, I think it ends this weekend for them, and the Saints beat them. Better roster, better defense, and they haven't shown that they can handle that defense yet. It's kind of a prove it game on Sunday that I'm not sure they prove.
Yeah. So the very first thing I looked at when I saw this game was it's really, really hard to beat any team in the National Football League. It's even harder to beat them twice. And it's damn near impossible to beat them 3 times in 1 year. And honestly, that's what I'm banking on. Neither of these teams inspired me or showed me anything that they're going to be real threats in the NFC in the first place in the wild card weekend. Honestly, I think the Packers have a pretty clear and relatively easy shot to the Super Bowl and road to the Super Bowl. But in terms of this matchup, no matter who wins it, one of them is going to be in the NFC Championship game. More likely than not, playing the Packers. So Yeah, I know the Saints and Drew Brees stomped the shit out of the Buccaneers a couple times this year, but I also find it hard to believe that Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles, and Tom Brady and company let them do it to them a third time.
Fair.
So honestly, and I honestly don't have a lot of analysis in this one either, because like I said, both of these teams this last weekend were super uninspiring in their performances. But I'm going to give it to the Buccaneers simply because I like the quarterback better. I like the offense overall better. The defense, and if the defense shows up, they can match the Saints. So, and just realistically and historically, it's damn near impossible to beat a team 3 times in a single year. So I'm just going to go Bucks with this one.
I think it's totally
and
fair.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it with a score of 26 to
26 to what?
to 20.
Alrighty.
I think it's going to be a relatively low-scoring affair. I think Todd Bowles' defense shows up for the third time around. And I don't have a whole lot of faith in Drew Brees to be able to light up a team.
So I've actually got this game going into overtime, believe it or not. And I have, it's kind of weird to say I have this game going to overtime and the Saints are winning it, because history says Tom Brady wins that like 10 out of 10 times. But I actually got the Saints winning this in overtime, mostly because I think a mistake is going to be made somewhere. It's going to be a critical mistake, and I think it's going to happen on the Bucs. Whether it's a forced mistake by the defense or whatever it may be, it's going to happen. And there's going to be mistakes made by the Saints offense too, which is why I've got this game being tied at like 24-24. And then whether it's a touchdown or field goal that wins it, I don't think it matters. So like, let's just say 30-24. Yeah, that 30-24, that's fine. In the Saints' favor. It's hard to pick this game, mostly because I'm not enamored with either one. And a piece of me is like, you know what? Brady and the offense are really going to pull it off this time. But then another piece of me is like, yeah, but that Saints defense really likes to punch teams like them in the mouth. So who really knows? And that's how I feel. Either way, I do expect an overtime, actually. I truly do. That's me, though. I do expect this game to go to overtime. So, right. The winner wins 30-24, whether it's the Bucs or the Saints, but I'll lean towards the Saints. And that's pretty much all we got for the divisional playoffs. Man, we only got 7 more games of football, man.
Hey, we get the, the Madden Pro Bowl. I'm actually interested to see how that's going to work.
I mean, I'm like, my interest is piqued, but I'm not necessarily.
I will probably watch about 15 minutes of it.
I think that's all I got.
Yeah, I got nothing else too.
All right, cool. So you can follow us at HC Analysts. You can also please subscribe to the show, obviously, and then follow us at HC_Pardue and at HCJC Sanders. Did I nail all that?
I believe so.
Yeah, when you start saying it a lot, you start getting it. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This one is under an hour and a half, like we always shoot for. So a relatively short one. Thanks so much. We do not have a guest next week listed up right now. We have a guest the following week listed up for our NFL show awards, because we're going to have 2 episodes. The week after the championship game, we'll cover the championship games and we'll cover an award show, and then the following week we'll do our Super Bowl preview. So that's how we have those. What?
And also after the Super Bowl, we're keeping it on the down low who it is, but we have a really, really big guest, and local Arizona sports fans are not going to want to miss it. It's really big. I'm really excited. So
we can give a slight hint. We have an Arizona beat writer, an Arizona Cardinals beat writer, who's going to be coming in on us. So as someone who actually has an insight that we don't have.
Yes.
So that'll be fun.
Maybe we'll get some. High end information.
Doubt it.
Get a source now. Yeah, probably not, but I can hope.
Yeah, we could hope. Anyways, thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate y'all. Enjoy the playoffs this weekend. I hope your team wins. Unless you're a Buffalo Bills fan, then I hope your team doesn't win at all this weekend. No offense. Sorry. Have a great week.